We talked last week with Avengers Endgame about how well that film would work for the casual fan, someone who really doesn't know that much about that world or those characters. And while I did argue and would still contend that it does indeed work quite well for both the casual and hardcore fan, I will also admit that it is difficult for me to really know that being in the latter category. I am a huge Marvel fan. This week, however, with Pokémon Detective Pikachu, I think I can speak with much more casual fan authority. I never collected the cards, I never watched the television show, and I've never played that very popular mobile game. So for someone like me who really doesn't know much more about the franchise than Pikachu, Bulbasaur, and the phrase "gotta catch 'em all," how does this film hold up? Does its world draw me in? Are the characters, human and Pokemon alike, crafted in a way that really enthralled and entertained me? Well, I will say it did have its moments. I really did enjoy the first few minutes of this film, which took the time to visually establish this very colorful world. A world chock-a-block full of these very interesting cartoon characters, which had been rendered to look pretty photorealistic, which was just a delight to see. Those first few minutes really were a solid example of building a world, and doing so without any verbal exposition, just images showing us what that world was. I also thought that the choice to make this a detective story allowed for, at least in a few instances, some more mythology and world building to be uncovered in natural and interesting ways. Furthermore, the detective story angle gave the overall narrative a decent focus and really did keep it from simply turning into a tour of fan favorite characters and events. And speaking of decently successful choices, I have no idea how hardcore Pokemon fans will respond to one of their most beloved and iconic characters actually speaking English to a human character, but I personally thought that that choice was rather inspired, allowing me to connect to and understand a character that I previously really had no affinity to. Unfortunately, that really is where the positive elements of this film end, in my opinion. It was in no way a disaster, but its plot was as generic and forgettable as they come, riddled with tired cliches and unsurprising turns. Really, though, the most egregious element of this film and its plot really can be summed up in a line from its lead character. That line being, "I have no idea where I'm going, I'm just going." This kind of directionless wandering really was the thing that kept the main character from driving the plot, like it so desperately needed him to. Things would just simply happen to him, and he'd be forced to simply respond. And as mildly entertaining as those things might have been, from Pokemon battles to giant moving mountains to detective work in a city full of animated creatures, the lead character's lack of investment in those things and drive to do them kept me, the audience, from becoming invested as well. As much as I really do like Justice Smith and things like Baz Luhrmann's Netflix show The Get Down, he unfortunately wasn't quite able to carry this film, which I will blame the screenwriting and the directing for just as much as him. And he also had zero chemistry with love interest Kathryn Newton. I also thought that Ryan Reynolds' style of comedy just felt a little bit out of place in this film, and also quite often overshadowed the narrative itself. His 10 quips a minute style just bulldozed everything. It really kind of felt like a situation of an actor having just a little too much fun in the recording booth, and then the editor not knowing what to cut and what to keep. And while on the topic of actors, I felt rather bad for the otherwise brilliant Ken Watanabe and Bill Nye. And the problem wasn't even necessarily that they were written like characters straight out of a 90s cheeseball action flick. After all, I rather like 90s cheeseball action flicks. It was that they were directed to play everything with such a dour earnestness that they felt out of place and awkward. All this to say, I don't think that Pokémon Detective Pikachu is bad. It was just as generic as they come and rather forgettable. And for all these reasons, I will give the film a 2.5 out of 5. I would still love to know what you guys thought of the film, though, so definitely comment below and let me know. And especially to you Pokemon fans out there, how did this film land for you? Did you like it? Was it blasphemous? Was it perfect? I would love to hear from you. And finally, please do subscribe. I'm going to continue to review films and television on this channel, and I would love for you to stay up to date on all of those things. But for now, I'm Chris Hartwell. This is The Heartbeat. Thank you for joining me.